Hello, good evening, Natalia. How are you? Is everything okay? Let me know if you can hear me correctly, please.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Hello.
Great, that's good to know, Natalia. So we're going to go back to our practice for writing today. If you can hear me well and everything is working good, we are going to start applying the things that we know plus extra things. Now, in order to
Mhm.
remember some basic rules for punctuation, Natalia, I'm going to also show you these punctuation mark rules that you got.
Uh-huh.
Okay, here. All right, and this is going to be in your document. So you have a lot of extra things here that we're going to start using. Now, let me explain this again. So that's because in today's review, I'm just going to explain this briefly. That is the present perfect related to past, okay? Because we're going to be writing something in past, but we have to try to structure this in a better way, all right? But before going with this review, let's remember what we're going to be using. Simple sentences, write one or two subjects or more subjects plus one or two verbs, but they are only related to that one subject or to that group of subjects, right? It is not a different verb for a different subject. Only one or a group of subjects and some verbs for that subject or group of subjects. Okay, again, I'm repeating that again, but that's what we have in mind for simple sentences. Compound, we have two different subjects or group of subjects that are divided right by a thumb, okay, and a comma, of course. If we don't use the comma here, it is going to be incorrect, right? And we have complex sentences that are subordinating conjunctions dividing two complete ideas. Again, two different subjects or group of subjects and their own verbs. Okay, that's why they are independent ideas, they are complete ideas. Okay, I gave you some examples, but this extra thing is summarizing again the fanboys that you have to join to complete ideas, okay, for compound sentences, the subordinating conjunctions that you have to join to complex sentences, and the rules in punctuation that you have to remember, right, in order to connect to complete ideas. You can use a period, you can use a semicolon, or you can use a comma with a fanboy, right? If you don't use one of those elements, you cannot give two complete ideas. It is going to be incorrect, right? If you use a comma without a fanboy, it is going to be incorrect as well, right? Also, you have more options. To connect the two ideas, you can use a transitional word or phrase. I'm going to give you a list. I think that you have a list from the previous course, but I'm going to show it to you again. You can use the transitional word to connect the two ideas with a period before or with a semicolon before. All right, again, this is not for memorizing now. It is not possible to do it because it's a lot of information. But again, I'm going to be repeating this so that little by little is going to have more and more sense. Okay, it's going to make more sense.
Mhm.
And then you have subordinating conjunctions for complex ideas, right? And these are subordinating conjunctions over here. You can use these words to connect ideas without a comma if it's in the middle, or with a comma if it's at the beginning, right? You have to use a comma over here if this word is at the beginning. And of course, you can use introductory phrases, for example, right? In June, it's an introductory phrase, comma, complete idea, right? Let me write it completely. So in June, comma, complete idea, period, right? Before the match, complete idea. What's a complete idea? Subject, verb, and a possible complement, right? Period. After that, complete idea, period, and so on and so forth, all right? So again, what am I showing here? This is everything that you little by little have to take into account in Natalia in order to work on your writing in a way better way, okay? Because you have a lot of elements that are positive in your writing. But again, as we were able to see, you have to practice in the usage of semicolons, some commas, right? The conjugation of some words, some prepositions, and some connectors as well. Okay, so this is going to help us understand that in a better way. Now, the last thing that I'm going to show you, then I know that perhaps it's going to be impossible to have questions about this now, but you're going to let me know if you have any comments or something else that you'd like to know. But just in any case, I believe it was here, Natalia, and no, it was in A9 or A7. Let me see. Yes, it was in A9. You still have access to this course, Natalia. So you go to A9, and here you have a list of transitional words and phrases. Okay, it is in the first part. You have the rule to use the punctuation mark, and you have transitional words for addition, right? Also, comma, complete idea. Additionally, comma, complete idea. And before, you need a period or a semicolon, right? So complete idea, period, or semicolon. Also, additionally, furthermore, any of these words, comma, and the second complete idea. This is for addition. Then you have for adversarial transitions, okay? Complete idea, period or semicolon, however, comma, second complete idea, right? Complete idea, period or semicolon, on the contrary, comma, the second complete idea, and so on. And you have a list to use, all right? For addition, for contrast, for concession, for cause, for result, for a sequence of actions, and you have some other exceptions. And this actually can be some subordinating conjunctions, all right? Although, even though, despite, in spite of, you have the rules over here. Okay, you're going to use these rules to use these specific elements. Okay, but this is again part of A9. If you go to A9 and you go to classwork and courses information and contact, you have extra writing, and over there you have those punctuation rules. Because in the task that I'm going to give you after the review, you have to use some transitional words, you have to use some fanboys, you have to use some subordinating conjunctions that you have over here. And of course, we have to follow these rules, but because it's going to be necessary, right? If you have those ideas, you are going to use these punctuation marks following the rules that you see over here. All right, but again, I'm giving you this not in order to memorize or understand everything right now, but in order to guide you, right, in how you can use this information and what's the thing that you have to know about each of these pieces of information. So, what do you say? Any questions or comments? Because now we're going to see the lesson, and I'm going to ask you to write a paragraph or two, and we're going to apply this knowledge. What do you say?
In general, when you see my writings and my practice, you think that this is my principal or my main mistake in all the writing, or I have more other type of mistakes?
Actually, I don't think that you have big and important mistakes. I believe the most positive aspect about your writing is that you can produce a lot in a very decent or a very good amount of time. Okay, that's always positive. Okay, that's something that is difficult for most people. For you, it is not difficult. So that's actually very positive. Why? Because you can produce a lot. Even though you have some mistakes, you have the chance to revise, to check that again, to correct your mistakes. Okay, that's the most positive thing that you have about your writing. Then you are not lost, of course, in terms of using punctuation. I believe it is good, but my piece of advice is that you have some difficulties, or that you have to practice with semicolons and commas. Okay, those two punctuation marks. Periods, I think they are working good, the periods and so on, but commas and semicolons. All right. Then, of course, this is not part of writing, of course, Natalia, but some prepositions, as you can see over here, and it happened before. Okay, this is the second paragraph. We can see it over here, but I remember the previous writing exercises. Be careful with some prepositions and the conjugation, all right, the correct conjugation. Remember that sometimes the present perfect is going to be the best option, sometimes the simple past. But again, in terms of writing, I would say some conjugations, the usage of semicolon, commas, prepositions. Okay, those are the main things that you have to work on. What I'm giving you is not only to work those details, is to work writing in general to improve your writing skills. All right, but you can pay attention to those elements that I mentioned. All right.
Okay.
And one thing that I also saw not just once, but I think twice or more. Remember that anytime that you use models, you always use the base form, right? It doesn't matter that this is a past model, a present model, a future model. Remember that it's always going to be the base form, right? Must go, can go, right? It should go, right? It's never going to be must to go or good to learn, right? That's also, but again, that's something extra that can affect your writing skills as well. But that's it. I don't know if you have any other comments or questions so that we can go to the lesson.
No.
All right, good. Now, again, I'll review. We're not going to spend a lot of time here. We are going to use most of the time for you writing these paragraphs. But we have to review this, okay? This is the past, the present perfect. So if I ask you just like this, what do you know and what do you remember about the present perfect, Natalia?
Mm, I think you use the present perfect when you talk about the action that happened um, in the past, and you need to use a have or has as an auxiliary of the verb, and the verb in participle.
That is correct. Let's expand more about that. If you say in the past, for example, if I say this, I have eaten that yesterday, what do you say? Is that correct or incorrect?
That's correct.
All right. We're going to analyze. If I say this question, when have you gone to the party? What do you say about that question? And what's the answer that you can give?
I had gone to the party yesterday.
Okay, all right. Now, there, let's analyze something. Okay, now, grammatically speaking, everything is correct except for one thing, right? The word yesterday. If we mention the word yesterday there, everything is going to be incorrect, right? Why? Because if you read in the title, we have something that says indefinite, right? So this has to be indefinite. If we mention when, it is going to be directly incorrect. Okay, that's why also, if you remember, we cannot ask the question when with this tense, right? So if I ask, when have you gone to the party? That's an incorrect question, right? Because we cannot ask when and we cannot say when with the present perfect, right? We can only say how long. We can only give other responses, right? Why have you gone to the party? And you say, I have gone to the party because I wanted to have fun. Okay, and it's good. Everything is perfect because we're not saying when. I don't know when you went to the party, and that's not important. Okay, according to
It's
the present
like
perfect.
the present perfect continuous when you don't see the don't have to use that if the situation was in the past.
Yes, they are exactly the same. In most of the cases, the present perfect simple, this is the present perfect simple, and the present perfect continuous, they are the same. They just have situations in which one is going to be better or the other is going to be better. But in general, they follow the same rules, Natalie. Both of them are indefinite past. In both of them, we never say when it happened. Okay? We can say how long. For example, I can ask this, Natalia. I can ask, how long have you worked at Executive English? That's correct. I'm not saying when. And I can say, I have worked at Executive English for 5 years. And that's
Mhm.
correct. Okay, but I don't know if it was the last 5 years, or if it was 5 years, 10 years ago, or if it was 5 years, 2 months ago, right? I don't know. So I don't know when, but I don't know how long. And I can ask that in the present perfect and also in the present perfect continuous. And both are correct. Okay, so
Mhm.
how long have you worked at Executive English? Present perfect. It's correct.
Mhm.
Indefinite? Correct. How long have you been working at Executive
Mhm.
English? Present perfect continuous. It is correct. It works good. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's up to you. What's your emphasis, Natalie? If your emphasis is just something that has happened, then use the present perfect. If your emphasis is something that has been happening recently, then use the present perfect continuous. Okay, so
Okay.
for actions indefinite in the past that can happen a long time ago or recently, the present perfect, because you don't know. But if you want to put emphasis on how recent the idea is, again, the present perfect continues, right? Because you can say, this week I've been studying. So we're saying when, but not exactly when, right? We say this week because this week is still happening. This week is not over yet. So you can use present expressions like today, this week, all right, this month, this year. Why? Because it's something that it is still happening, that it's not finished yet. Okay, so for anything that is not finished, it is good to use the present perfect or the present perfect continuous. Okay, so that's why you can say, this week I have been working harder. All right, and it is good. It's not finished. It's still happening, and it can still happen tomorrow. It can still happen the day after tomorrow, at the end of the month. I don't know, right? So I'm not finishing the idea of that action being done or being over, right? I'm just mentioning something that started in the past, at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the week, or at the beginning of the month, and it continues until now, and it perhaps will continue until tomorrow, until tonight, until the end of this week, until the end of this month, until the end of this year. Okay, and because you have that possibility, we consider that indefinite because we don't know when it is going to finish. All right, we can have an
Mhm.
idea of when it starts or when it is happening, but not when it could finish. All right, that's mainly what makes this indefinite, Natalia, not the beginning of the action, but when the action could finish, or if it's finished or unfinished. And the explanation that I'm giving you, Natalia, applies for both the present perfect and the present perfect continuous. But again, if you want to show a better connection with today, with the present perfect continuous is going to be better. Okay, so that's in general. That's in general things that we have to know. We are going to read, all right, because actually we are going to see the presentation and you're going to read what I'm saying. It's in the presentation. But
Mhm.
as an introduction, I don't know if you have any questions about that. Let me know, please.
And another difference would be maybe is the simple present perfect. I have you 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 has finished the action, and in the present perfect continuous, the action is happening until now, or no necessary.
Exactly, not necessarily, but in most of the cases, it's
Mhm.
one difference. Okay,
Mm.
why? Because the present perfect simple can be finished, but it can
Mhm.
also be unfinished. Okay,
Mm.
but in most of the cases, it is going to be finished. Okay, between
Mhm.
the present perfect simple and present perfect continuous, in most of the cases, it is going to be finished. Why? For example, for the present perfect simple, it is a good idea to use number of times that something happened, right? So you can say, I have been to Lima. Okay, I have been to Lima twice or three
Mhm.
times. Okay, so that's finished, right? I
Mhm.
have been to Lima 3 times in the past and the action is finished. So that's a good idea to use the present perfect simple. But if you say that in the present perfect continuous, it's not correct, right? I have been to Lima, right? 3 times. It doesn't make sense. Or I have been traveling to Lima 3 times. It doesn't make sense. Why? Because
Mhm.
it finished, right?
Mhm.
But it can also be finished. But if it's recent, okay, the present perfect continuous can be finished, but you can see the results of that action. For example, you can
Mhm.
say, look, right, the floor is wet. Okay, the floor is wet. It has been raining. Okay, so you can say
Mhm.
that it has been raining, but it stopped. It's not raining
Yeah.
anymore, but it happened recently and you can see the effects. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you. It can be, but both of them can be finished or unfinished. Both of them can have a connection with the present, both. Both of them can have a connection with the future, but the present perfect is better for things that finished and you don't know when, and the present perfect continuous is better for things that are unfinished, not finished, or things that finished recently. Okay,
Okay.
that's mainly going to be the idea. All right,
Okay. Mhm.
good. So with that in mind, let's read everything we have to read. The review. We know we're talking about the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous, but remember that you have another tense in the past, that is the simple past. The two of them, the present perfect simple and present perfect continuous, of course, they are just one. Okay, they are one. But of course, you have like better options, right? As I told you, but they are one.
Mhm.
They are indefinite past. And in this group, you have the definite past, that is the simple past. Okay, so you
Okay.
have the simple past and you have the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous. All right, they are
Mhm.
opposite, but the present perfect simple and continuous, they are together in many cases. Okay, that has to be important. Now, of course, the simple past. Let's read, please, not everything. You're just going to read, please, Natalia, as a way of reviewing the main explanation and these two examples, please.
Mhm. We use the simple past to talk about definite events in the past. She traveled to Santa Cruz yesterday. They took their test last weekend.
There you go, right? So this has something that you can never have in the present perfect simple or in the present perfect continuous, right? Never. That is when. Why? Because do we know when these actions happened? Yes, right? The two of them. I know that she traveled to Santa Cruz yesterday. So I can locate that in a calendar, right? I know when.
Mhm.
I know that they took their test last weekend. I can see the calendar and I know where the last weekend, right? And when it took place. So
Uh-huh.
the simple past is definite. We know when and we say when it happened.
Mhm.
Okay, and again, that's something unique for the simple past. That's something that you cannot do in the perfect tenses. Okay, in the
Mhm.
simple and in the continuous perfect tenses, we cannot do that. Okay, simple, again, we know this. It's reviewing, it's to show the contrast. We know that for tenses, we use regular and irregular verbs, right? Ed or the verb changes. We know that. Okay, we don't need to see that in detail. And
Mhm.
in the conjugation of the simple present, actually, I want to try. I want to see how you're doing. Give me, please, 3 ideas in the simple past. Sorry, Natalia.
Mhm.
One affirmative, one negative, and one question. You have the formulas over here. What do you say? What 3 examples can you give? Just speak.
And I smelled the flowers.
Okay, I
Um,
smell the flowers. Good, that's
Negative.
one.
Um, eh, the child didn't cry eh, again.
Okay, yes, the child didn't, right? Negative, cry, base verb, right? When it's negative, again, great. And what about a question?
Um, did you take my keys?
Good, good. Well, I couldn't hear very well the last part. Did you take what's the last word?
My keys?
Okay,
The
all
key?
right. Okay, great, exactly. So, did you take my keys? Right? Yes, I did, or no, I didn't. Perfect. Okay, so remember, you didn't use it, but remember that in all of these cases, you can say when, right? You can say when. For example, did you take my keys, right, 5 minutes ago? Right? I don't find them, and they were here 5 minutes ago, right? Where are they? Right? And again, all of them give you the possibility of say when, right? When, because that's what the simple past lets you do. Okay, saying when. Now again, review. Let's go to the next part. Expressions. As we can say when, we can say last week, last month, last year, 2 days ago, 5 minutes ago, 3 years ago, in 1990, in June, right? On January the 26th, on October 14th, on December 25th, and so on. When I was a child, when I was at school, when I was working. Okay, so anything that says when is good for the simple past, right? Now, the opposite, right? The other group for past, the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous. They are indefinite past events. Okay, so just to reinforce, please, Natalia, let's read this once again. And also let's read these two examples over here, please.
We use the present perfect to talk about indefinite events in the past. They have watched that movie before. Watch. We have traveled to Santa Cruz 3 times.
Exactly, right? So I can ask the same question here, Natalia. Do we know when these actions happened? We don't, right? We don't. When have they watched that movie? Before? Yes, right? We know that it was before, but when? We don't know, okay? Or we don't want to say. When have they traveled to Santa Cruz? 3 times, right? No. So we don't know when. That's why we cannot ask questions with when in the present perfect tenses, present perfect simple and present perfect continuous, and we don't say when in our sentences. Okay, so that's how you decide if you use the simple past or the present perfect tenses, right? And you know, between the present perfect simple and present perfect continuous, you know what are the differences as well. Okay, but here mainly the contrast between these two groups, and then we're going to see once again the difference between the present perfect tenses, simple and continuous. All right. And again, here we don't use the simple past, right? We have to use the past participle of the verb. Eaten, gone, given, written. Okay. We need the last conjugation. And of course, as you were saying, Natalia, have or has. Those are the auxiliaries that we need. Here are some of the formulas, and actually again for practicing just speaking, please, Natalia, let's give again 3 examples, please. One affirmative idea, one negative, and one question, please, using the present perfect simple. And remember that in all of the cases, you need the auxiliary have or has, and always the past participle of the verb. In affirmative and negative and in questions, always the past participle. So what do you say? What comes to your mind?
And my sister has cooked the meal during her vacation.
All right, that's quite and partially good, But if you say right during, it can be good, but actually we are saying when exactly, right? Because the vacation is going to be a specific event and we can locate the vacation, right? So actually you have options to use this, and I'm going to show you this in advance. You know this, but I'm going to show you expressions, right? You can say before, you can say once, twice, three times, four times. You can say for, right? For 5 days, for 5 weeks. You can say since, right? Since this, since that, because during is going to be too specific. We know when it started, we know when it finished. But if you say since, it is the beginning, but we don't know when it ended. That's why it is indefinite. You can say already, right? I have already finished that. Yet for negative, I haven't done it yet. Just, I have just arrived, something recent. And ever for questions, right? Have you ever been to, I don't know, Puno before? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Okay, so these are my recommendations, and actually these are the general recommendations. So what do you say? One more time. What affirmative idea can you give me using the present perfect simple? You can only change the expression.
My sister has cooked the meal for 5 weeks.
Okay, yes, that's correct. Now, just one detail. Remember, if you're saying cook, right, that verb, make it noticeable that is the past participle, right? So,
Cook.
cooked, exactly. So my sister has cooked her meal or their meal, right, for 5 weeks. Perfect. It
If
means
I
that.
say,
Mhm.
sorry, since January to March is a period of time, and no is correct.
Yes, it's not correct. You can say since January, perfect. But if you say to, then you're giving a specific time. You're saying when. Okay, from this time to this time, we can locate when, and that's not going to be good. In that case, it's better if you use from, to, and you use the simple past. Okay, I did this from this month to this month. It is definite, it is more specific, and you use the simple past and not the present perfect in that case.
Okay.
So it's a good idea not to mention that. Exactly as you said. Perfect. That's one. One in negative, please, Natalia.
Mm, mm, My father hasn't fixed the car yet.
Perfect. That's very good. Very, very good. My father hasn't fixed the car yet. Right? Yet already they are very good for the present perfect, right? Because remember, the present perfect is to talk about experiences, to tell something, but it's not important to say when. It's just that you can give some elements to make it more interesting, and that's perfect. Good. One more, the last one, please. A question. What question can you ask in the present perfect? What do you say?
Uh, mm, have you picked up your song of the school?
Good. Just the details. Remember one more time. The pick, make it more noticeable that is in the past. Okay, the past participle. And instead of, you pick up someone from a place. Okay, so from the school.
Yes.
Exactly. So it would be right. Have you picked up your son from the school? Okay, so one more time that one, please.
Have you picked up your song from the school?
From school. Exactly, perfect. Okay, just those two details, everything else seems to be great. We are not mentioning when, we are not mentioning time. So it is a good question in the present perfect. Okay, good. We are good so far. Let's continue because now we're going to see the present perfect continuous. We are going to read again, not everything. And after this, we're going to start with at least one paragraph. But let's finish by reading these elements, please. That explanation and these two examples, please, Natalia.
Use the present perfect continuous to talk about something that happened in the past and is still happening. With the present perfect continuous, we are focusing on the continuation of an action. I have been studying since Monday. She has not been working for 2 weeks.
Exactly, right? So this is the first reason. It's not everything. It's what you said. For things that are still happening, the present perfect continuous is a very good option, right? I've been studying since Monday. Great. I'm still studying now, right? And I'm going to continue tomorrow. Great. She has not been working for 2 weeks, so 2 weeks ago, right? It started right now. She's still not working. Tomorrow, she's not going to work. We don't know, right? But the idea is that there's a clear connection with the present. But remember, this is one possibility. Okay, this is one possibility. We don't have the other ones that I was telling you. I think they are going to be part of A11, A12. But remember the other ones that I told you, Natalia. It can be finished when the action can be seen because it happened recently. That's also a good way to use the present perfect continuous, right? It has been raining. How do you know? Because I can see that the floor is wet, right? That the ground is wet. That's why, right? You have been crying. How do you know? Because your eyes, right? They are kind of red, something happened. Okay, so things that also are finished, they don't have a connection with the present anymore directly, but indirectly you see the consequences. Okay, but they are finished. All right, so take that into account. They still have a connection with the present, or they don't have a connection with the present, but you can see the possible results that they had. And that's how you decide what to use and when to use it. And again, the present perfect, simple for actions that finished, mainly in the past, but you don't want to say when, right? I have traveled twice. I have done it before, right? I have seen that movie before, or I have already seen that movie. That's present perfect simple, right? You don't say, I have been already seen that movie. That's incorrect, right? So for expressions as yet, or expressions as already, okay, or expressions as just, they give the idea of something that is done. It is good to use the present perfect simple. Or for expressions related to number of times. Because if you say how many times you have done something, it's because it's finished, but you don't say when. That's also for the present perfect simple. Okay, so finished actions, present perfect simple, not always, but most of the time. Finished actions with a result in the present, or unfinished actions, the present perfect continuous. Okay, but again, remember that in most of the cases, you can use one or the other one, and your example is going to be good. If here you say, I have studied since Monday, it is correct. It is good. It is not incorrect. But of course, it is better to say this if you want to put emphasis on the continuation. Okay, that's the only and the last thing I wanted to clarify. You have the formulas over here that we're not going to practice because we're going to go directly to the writing. And remember, a good question for the present perfect continuous, Natalia, is how long, right? How long have you been studying English? How long have you been eating that? How long have you been waiting for me? How long have you been drinking that jar? How long have they, right, been traveling around the world, and so on and so forth, right? Things that you want to know the period of time, all right? But that's it. With this, I finish with a review, with explanation, and I'm going to give you the instructions for the paragraph that we're going to write. But let me know, please, questions or comments that you might have to go to the practice, please.
In this case, in the present perfect continuous, I can I use the fun voice or no?
In all the tenses, yes. Actually, you can
Mm,
say, let me see, right? You can say, it has been raining, comma, so I'm not going to go outside because it is still freezing. It's still very cold. Okay, so in the
okay.
first part,
Mm,
I'm using the present perfect continuous, and in the second part, I'm using future. Okay, so there's no problem. You can combine the ideas. You can use different tenses. As long as it makes sense, you can use any tense with the fanboys. You can use any tense with simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, with because, with while, with so, with and, as long as you
mm.
respect, right? Sorry, the comma rules that we have, everything's going to
Mhm.
be possible. It's just
Okay.
the logic. Okay, it has to be logic, of course.
Uh-huh. Okay. Perfect.
All right, good. Now, this is the thing.
Mhm.
It's not possible to use Natalia, just to let you know that, and you must know it. It's not possible to use the present perfect and the present perfect continuous every time. Okay, so in a paragraph, trying to use everything in that tense or in those tenses, it's going to be impossible. You're going to do it, grammatically speaking, is possible, but the sentence is going to be weird.
Mhm.
Okay, weird. Why? Because in most of the cases, to tell a story, that's what you're going to do now. You're going to tell me an organized story in past, and you have to use simple past. You can use past continuous. You can use present perfect simple. You can use present perfect continuous. Okay, but
Mhm.
it's not obligatory to use all of them. It depends on your story. Okay,
Okay.
why? Because the present perfect is only for experience. You cannot say, I have gone here, I have eaten that, and then I have been waiting for this and that. So it is good, but again, it's not logical and it's not natural. Okay, for
Mhm.
story, you use the past continuous, right? Last week, as I was doing this, as I was doing my homework, my cousin called me to go to a party, right? I was
Mhm.
very excited. I have gone to that nightclub before. I know it is a good nightclub, right? I have
Mhm.
had lots of fun, but I don't know if I want to go. Okay, I told her that I want to do this and that. So again, what I'm doing is showing you that I have to use many tenses. So that's what you have to do now. Okay, you have
Mhm.
to use the tenses in past, even in present. Okay, in past, in present, all the tenses that you know to tell me a
Mhm.
past story. It has to be
Okay.
organized. You have to use some fanboys. Of course, not everything has to be fanboys, but again, just going here to go to the practice. Okay, so once again, one paragraph, but it has to be a very complete and complex paragraph. You have to use
Mhm.
fanboys. It's up to you if you want to use one, two, three fanboys. Three perhaps is going to be too much. One to
Mhm.
two fanboys. Okay, that's a good number. One to two fanboys. Then you're going to use and if I say fanboys, then you're going to write compound sentences, right? What's a compound sentence? Two ideas joined by a fanboy, right? So in other
Mhm.
words, you have to write at least one or two compound sentences, right? Fanboys. Then at least one, okay, at least one. If you can write more, good, but at least one complex sentence. What is a complex sentence? Two ideas joined by a subordinating conjunction, right?
Mhm.
And here I have subordinating conjunctions: because, while, when, if, as. All right. You have to use also at least one time this structure with a transitional word, right? Remember, a transitional word is the document that I showed you. Also, additionally, however, nonetheless, nevertheless, consequently, or as a consequence, first, second, afterwards, after that, before that. So, all the words that are going to give an introduction to your second idea, that's a transitional word. Okay, it can be at the beginning, it can be in the middle. I'm going to give you
Okay.
one example, right? You can say, I love playing the guitar, right? Anytime I have time, period. However, comma, I hurt my hand and I cannot play in today's concert. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's one example. It's very similar to fanboys, Talia, but instead of a comma, you use period and semicolon, and instead of fanboys, you have to use transitional words that again give you the same ideas as some fanboys, but you have more possibilities. Okay, that's it.
Mhm.
That's everything I'm going to require from you. I don't know if you have any questions. If not, we can begin, please, Natalia. Let me know.
No.
Okay, let's do it, please. We're going to have 5 minutes. In these 5 minutes, please, let's try to summarize everything. 9:05, we check what you got.
Okay.
Okay, so let's finish the last details, please, and let's paste the information in the document so that we can check to finish, please, Natalia.
Okay. Mm, I I I can't write too much.
Okay, no worries. Again, the idea is that we have to write practice, and these details that we have in these paragraphs, even though they are not that long, it's
Mhm.
good for practicing. Okay, so let me give you right quick feedback, but important and detailed feedback.
Mhm.
Remember here the rule. If you have something at the beginning, right, that is not the subject, it is going to be with a comma, right? We call that introductory phrases. It can be in June, it can be today, tonight, yesterday, right? So
Okay.
here we need the comma, okay? So today, comma, all right, let me change that and this, okay? Today, comma, it was this day for me, period. Very good, complete idea, period, perfect. I have been organizing my tasks right for the day, and at the same time, good, we're using detailed commas. That's perfect. I have been doing right the job at home. Okay, yes, it is correct. Cooking. Okay, yes, and this is colon as uh, an illustration, paraphrasing, or explanation for what you mean, right? That's
Mhm.
perfect. Now remember, we don't say right like the lunch, the dinner. We only say dinner, right? I ate
Mm,
dinner. I'm going to prepare dinner. I'm going to prepare lunch. We don't say
mhm.
my lunch. We don't say the lunch directly.
Mm,
Lunch, without
mhm.
the article. Okay, good. So cooking, cooking lunch. Okay, list of items. I thought it was clarification. No, it's list of items. It's great. Washing the clothes, cleaning the house while I took, okay? um, if you're going to use while to connect these ideas, it's better that both ideas are happening at the same time,
Okay.
okay? So here you're going to say, this is the last thing, the
I
last
see.
item. So,
Mhm.
and cleaning the house while taking
Ah,
extra time for remote meetings.
mhm.
So this and is because this is your last item, even though it's an item of two parts, it is your last item. And as you're using while and you're not using complete ideas, you only use while and the gerund, directly
Mhm.
gerund. Okay, so while taking extra time for remote meetings. In fact, good. I have been taking a shower when my colleague. Now, this is incorrect, right? Why? Remember that we never say when, even though it's an interruption, we never say
Mhm.
when with the perfect tenses. Okay, so
Mm.
I was taking a shower.
Ah,
Okay,
yes.
anytime you want to mention something in continuous that was happening when something else happened, continuous, past continuous, but not present perfect continuous. Because
Mm, mhm.
with present perfect continuous and present perfect simple, we never mention when. All right. So,
Mhm.
in fact, I was taking a shower when my colleague called, right? Because this is past. Called me.
Mhm.
All right. And I can't, no, can't is present, right? This is your past story. So, what is the
Yes.
past of can? Exactly.
Mm, okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
And this is another complete idea with a fanboy. So, comma.
Mhm.
All right. There you go. Comma. And I couldn't answer here. There you go. That's it. Those are my corrections. Again, it is good, but one more time, be careful with the commas. Anytime you have
Mhm.
introductory phrases, commas. Okay. Anytime you have a fanboy to complete those to complete ideas, a comma. All right.
Mhm.
If you are going to say when, even though you're saying here when, right? When someone called you, when you were younger, when you were a child, that's when, right? You don't use the perfect tenses. You have to use simple tenses, simple past, or past continuous, one of those, right? Because remember, we use the past continuous to show that something was happening when something else interrupted the action. Okay, and because of that, we have to use this and that. Now, remember, you can use with fanboys as you asked me. Yes, you can use with some subordinating conjunctions. Yes, with because, for example, as I was telling you. But again, remember the logic and what you mention with these subordinating conjunctions is going to define if it is possible or not. In the case of when and while, you have to be careful because you're saying when. And in that case, you cannot use the perfect tenses, all right? But if you have a different subordinating conjunction as because, it is possible to do it, okay? Anything that doesn't mention when, it is possible to use it with the perfect tenses. If it says when, you cannot do it. That's the basic rule. All right, that's it. Those are my corrections. I don't know if you have any last details so that you can ask to finish the class. Let me know, please, Natalia.
After why you have to use continuous tense.
Yes, it is a good idea.
And with when you use past continuous at the first part of the sentences, and then past.
And then past, yes.
When.
Or you can use also simple past when simple past, right? Okay. Or even you can say when past continuous also. It is possible, but this is the best option. Past continuous when simple past, it's the best option.
Okay.
All right, but we cannot use past perfect simple or past perfect continuous, none of them, because when we say when, it is now impossible to use perfect tenses.
Never.
Never. It's one of the few rules in English that is always going to be like that, okay? There's no exceptions.
Okay.
All right, there you go. So let's finish, please. As always, I'm sending the poll. You have it over there, Natalia. And that's it. All right. I hope that you have a good night, and I'll see you on Wednesday to continue working.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
You're welcome. Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.